crush your enemies.
They drew first blood, not me.
See them driven before you.
Oh, my user.
And hear the lamentation of your women.
But I pity the fool.
Glitter in the dark near the 10-house gate.
Phone home.
They're here.
Oh, real light sleeper, child.
Welcome to Vintage Video, where we're rewatching the 80s so you don't have to. We'll be reviewing every major film release of the 1980s in chronological order, overanalyzing what you've seen and spoiling what you haven't. I'm Patrick O'Reilly.
I'm Jesse Bayless.
And I'm Richard Wells.
And today we're discussing Conan the Barbarian, released May 14th, 1982. It was written by John Milius and Oliver Stone, based on a story by Edward Summer, adapted from characters by Robert E. Howard, directed by John Milius, and released by Universal Pictures and 20th Century Fox. Author Robert E. Howard debuted the character of Conan the Cimmerian in a 1931 short story from Weird Tales magazine entitled People of the Dark. Between its publication and Howard's suicide 5 years later, he would see the publication of 17 more hard-boiled adventure stories and a novel from the fictional barbarian's life, and since then, the character has been adapted into many novels, comics, games, and films.
But he started as a Sumerian?
Cimmerian.
A Cimmerian.
C-I-M-M.
Oh, that's not what I thought you said.
Yeah.
What's a Cimmerian?
That's the spirit, the horse, right?
No,
It's
that's the Cimarron. Howard was a longtime sufferer of depression and shot himself upon learning of his mother's impending death by tuberculosis. That's why he died 5 years after creating this character. In the stories, Conan is black-haired and blue-eyed, a man of all trades. Educated, a skilled sailor, fighter, all taking place in the Hyborian Age, an era of author Howard's invention, said to exist somewhere around 10,000 BC. He's a Cimmerian from the country of Cimmeria, which is in turn descended directly from the island of Atlantis. When their homeland sank into the sea, the Atlanteans founded Cimmeria. The country's name was borrowed from the ancient Iranian nomads described in Homer's Odyssey as a mythological culture situated near a portal to the netherworld.
I thought the whole idea of Atlantis was that they were like fishy people that lived under the water.
No, I think the popular legend is that it was a society and that was flooded and killed.
Oh, okay.
It's not like in Aquaman, also featuring a Conan the Barbarian. In the original stories and the 2011 remake, Conan is literally born on the battlefield. The earliest and most enduring visual depictions of the character are the famed Frank Frazetta oil paintings done for paperback editions of Howard's stories reprinted in the 1950s. In the 1970s, the character was resurrected in popularity by his appearance in a series of Marvel comics written by Roy Thomas, who acquired the rights to the character directly from Howard's estate at the written request of Marvel readers, enamored by Frazetta's illustrations and eager to see him join the Marvel stable. The most popular Marvel runs of the character include the 23-year run of Conan the Barbarian and the 21-year run of Savage Sword of Conan. Roy Thomas's stories were illustrated by the legendary Barry Windsor Smith and became his signature work on the path to an equally celebrated turn penciling Wolverine's popular Weapon X story arc. If the name Barry Windsor Smith rings a bell to you two, it's because we've seen his hands previously for the show, portraying those of Michael Caine as comic illustrator Jonathan Lansdale, drawing his Conan-inspired Mandro character in Oliver Stone's 1981 horror film, The Hand.
Oh.
This version of the character led directly to the planning of a 6-part film series co-written by Thomas and screenwriter Edward Summer, but their collaborations, largely based on Thomas's Conan series, Rogues in the House, were never adapted to film. Summer brought the idea to EP Edward R. Pressman, who also adored Frazetta's paintings, and set about acquiring the film rights to the character, which took a full 2 years and hundreds of thousands of dollars to accomplish. A lifelong Conan fan, director John Milius approached EP Pressman hoping to direct. The script of what became 1982's Conan the Barbarian drew inspiration not from Robert E. Howard's original stories, but the works of authors who took up the mantle after his passing, specifically Lynn Carter and L. Sprague de Camp. Milius picked up his favorite parts of their work, and Pressman brought in Oliver Stone to write a draft, but eventually Milius stepped away from the project to direct his own film, Big Wednesday, for Paramount. Pressman, unable to reach an agreement with Frazetta as a visual consultant, brought in Ron Cobb, of Dark Star, Star Wars, and Alien fame, to produce paintings Pressman intended to use raising additional funds for the film.
Was Oliver Stone known at this point?
A little bit. I think The Hand was his second film, and that came out before this, but he wrote his draft of this before he worked on The Hand.
Okay. So he wasn't a big name before.
No.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think so. After Milius's departure from the project, screenwriter Oliver Stone suggested Franco Zeffirelli or Ridley Scott to fill the director's chair. Stone was even briefly considered to direct himself until he turned in his final draft. Adapted primarily from the original Howard Works' Black Colossus and A Witch Shall Be Born, which was reportedly a cocaine-fueled post-apocalyptic clusterfuck, which producer Pressman estimated would have cost the studio between $40 and $70 million to faithfully adapt.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
I
I'm
wish
all
I'd
for
seen
it.
that movie.
Oliver Stone's cocaine-fueled Conan the Barbarian
Yeah.
movie.
Apparently, Stone's climax specifically called for a battle between Conan and an army of 10,000 mutants.
Sounds great.
Stone's draft was mostly tossed out except for Conan's crucifixion from A Witch Shall Be Born and the climbing of the Serpent Tower from Howard's story The Tower of the Elephant. And Stone, of course, moved on to write and direct his own loosely related film, The Hand, also about a Conan author-ish guy. When Pressman was unable to convince any major studio to take the risk, Milius returned to the project, offering to rewrite it himself, having a proven track record with uncredited work on Jaws and Dirty Harry, as well as credited and Oscar-nominated work on Coppola's Apocalypse Now. The major stumbling block here was that Milius was already contracted to work next for Dino De Laurentiis, but Pressman and De Laurentiis managed to hammer out a deal to co-produce the film. De Laurentiis agreed to foot the film's production budget, and Pressman surrendered all rights to the film's profits. De Laurentiis brought Universal on board to distribute, and even secured a marketing budget of $12 million. Naturally, the studio would prefer a big name to star, and Charles Bronson, Sylvester Stallone, and even William Smith, who goes on to portray Conan's father in the film, were briefly considered for the part of Conan. But Pressman and Milius had always preferred the relative unknown Arnold Schwarzenegger for the part. Supposedly, even David Prowse, the on-set performer of Darth Vader, made the shortlist for Conan consideration, which would have made a battle with James Earl Jones feel that much more personal. At the time, Arnold was best known for his bodybuilding career. He grew up in Austria, where he went AWOL from the Austrian army to compete in and win several bodybuilding contests, and later sat out his punishment in military prison. He would compete multiple times in the Mr. Universe contest, which he considered his ticket to America, and placed second in 1966. This accomplishment brought him to the attention of his childhood idol, bodybuilder Reg Park, who helped Arnold train his muscle definition enough to return and win first prize at the 1967 amateur and the 1968 through 1970 professional Mr. Universe competitions. The same year, 1970, Arnold took a second swing at the even more prestigious Mr. Olympia contest and became its youngest winner at just 23 years old. He came back to win the next 5 consecutive contests until he was dethroned in 1976 by friend and eventual Conan co-star Franco Columbu. In Bob Rafelson's 1976 film entitled Stay Hungry, Arnold essentially plays himself, an Austrian bodybuilder training for the Mr. Universe competition. After losing weight to play that part, his intense Mr. Olympia training to get back in shape was famously depicted in the 1977 documentary Pumping Iron, which is where he was first spotted by Pressman and Milius as basically a living incarnation of Frazetta's Conan paintings. De Laurentiis was dead set against Arnold, who he had previously screen tested for the role of Flash Gordon, and vetoed his accent from consideration.
Did we skip Hercules in New York?
Kind of.
I'm like, there's a whole movie in here somewhere. Yeah. We watched it.
Yeah, but he doesn't even talk in it because he's dubbed over
completely.
I was
going to say The Long Goodbye.
Yeah. He doesn't talk in that one either. Pressman and Milius fought hard to secure Arnold the role and a paycheck of $250,000. But because of his stature and musculature, he was nearly impossible to double, and consequently did most of his own stunts as well. Unfamiliar with the character, Arnold overtrained for the role, and was again asked to slim down a bit for the part, but first, he decided to re-enter the Mr. Olympia contest and win again in 1980. Though many have suggested the win was illegitimate, swayed by his celebrity with the contest's judges.
Still, I'm kind of blown away by the accomplishments he's had at such a young age. It's pretty incredible. He was so swollen by his training that he couldn't raise a sword over his head or mount a horse because his muscles literally limited his range of motion that much. I don't know why you'd want him to slim down for the role.
Because he needs to hold swords up and he needs to ride horses.
I guess, but I'm just saying, like, I feel
you
like
just want him to be
a
cartoon muscle man?
Yes.
Yeah. Various sources have suggested Schwarzenegger was contracted to appear in at least 3 films and as many as 12. Rather than surround Arnold with proven actors, the second and third hero characters were also played by non-actors, specifically professional dancer Sandahl Bergman, recommended to the production by her All That Jazz collaborator Bob Fosse as the warrior Valeria, and professional surfer Gerry Lopez, who had previously played himself for director Milius in Big Wednesday as the rogue thief Subotai. Milius decided it was more important that the characters showed a natural chemistry with each other, and he was 100% right, honestly. These people feel like they're friends, and they fit in the same universe really well.
Yeah.
He also didn't want the 6'2" Schwarzenegger to dwarf everyone else on set and look like a destroyer of children. Like, he wanted the fights to seem fair, at least.
I don't know. I think that also would have been great.
Yeah. On the path to William Smith, Jack Palance, Nick Nolte, and the late great Joe Don Baker, who we just lost a week ago, were considered for the part of Conan's father. Raquel Welch was suggested by the studio for Valeria, but recently blacklisted after a controversy we discussed in our review of Cannery Row. For the film's supporting cast, proven actors Max von Sydow and James Earl Jones were brought in as King Osric and Thulsa Doom respectively, and Schwarzenegger has since repeatedly credited both of them for showing him incredible patience during the production and offering their expert advice whenever he needed it. Before Sydow, Sterling Hayden was offered and accepted the role of King Osric.
I would have been... I mean, I love Von Sydow in this, but Sterling Hayden would also have been wonderful.
That'd be great. He'd be like Lance Henriksen in the Super Mario Brothers movie, just like coughing dust and complaining about his missing daughter. But Hayden stepped down for health reasons and never acted on film again, leaving this season's Venom at the end of his filmography. John Huston was considered to replace him until Sydow accepted the part at his own son's insistence as a huge fan of the Conan comics. Before Jones, the role of Thulsa Doom nearly went to Sean Connery. Originally set to film in Yugoslavia, the production had to relocate to Spain over concerns of political stability in the region. Most of the film's most impressive sets, the Wheel of Pain, the Tree of Woe, and Thulsa Doom's Temple of Set, were built practical, to scale, for the production.
Really?
Ha, to scale.
Yeah.
Snakes.
I get it. But that's amazing. Like,
he didn't want to do matte paintings because he thought they looked really fake all the time. There are other matte paintings in the film, but the main set pieces are all real structures built for the film.
It looks amazing, and that's even more incredible that all of that was real.
The film also makes use of real swords designed by Ron Cobb and forged at a cost of $10,000 a sword by swordsmith Jody Sampson. Though 3-pound replicas were used for many fights, close-ups usually required the real weapons, which led to several injuries on set, including a careless stunt performer who ignored his choreography and sliced one of Sandahl Bergman's fingers to the bone by mistake.
Ooh.
What? They were sharp?
Yep.
Why would they be sharp?
Because the camera's too close to them for them to not be sharp.
I guess they didn't have the visual effects technology to just do dull swords and then sharpen them in post.
But she was a trooper, I guess. She went and got stitches and came back and went right back to work.
That's crazy to me.
The finished product was not an obvious hit to studio heads, who pushed its release to early summer 1982 to eject it from their 1981 awards season. The film collected an unexpected $10 million in its opening weekend, and at the time record for an R-rated release, eclipsing Stir Crazy's $8.7 million opening, but it was understandably protested by several animal rights activist organizations. By the end of its theatrical run, it had paid its $20 million budget nearly 4 times over, finishing with $79 million for the year. Conan has been parodied many times over the years by Terry Pratchett's Discworld character Conan the Barbarian, Carl Critchlow's Thrud the Barbarian, and even versions that evolved into successful IPs like Sergio Aragonis's Gru the Wanderer and Dave Sims' Cerebus the Aardvark. But my personal favorite is Weird Al Yankovic's parody from UHF.
Never before in the history of motion pictures has there been a screen presence so commanding, so powerful, so deadly. He's Conan the Librarian.
Can you tell me where I can find a book on astronomy?
Don't you know the Dewey Decimal System?
Conan the Librarian.
I'm sorry. These books are a little overdue.
Slice. Just cuts the guy in half. And I haven't watched it yet, but Cartoon Network and William Street co-produced a Conan parody called Korgoth of Barbaria, which featured the voice of Diedrich Bader as Korgoth, and I bet that's funny. I like him a lot.
Well, growing up in the 90s, there was a Conan the Barbarian animated series that I really liked.
Oh, yeah? Like an official one?
Oh, yeah. Official Conan. It was really good. I don't remember too much about the plot, but it dealt with snake people.
Okay.
And there was like this thing about star metal, like all the swords and weapons were made of
like asteroids.
Yeah. That was like this like metal that no one else could forge.
Interesting.
It was interesting. It was kid friendly, so like whenever they killed like a serpent person, they just, because the star metal would contact them, they would just like teleport to the serpent dimension. That was just their way of getting around killing people.
That's awesome.
But I enjoyed the show.
I haven't watched any of Primal, the newer animated series from Samurai Jack guy. What's his name?
Oh, Gendy.
Yeah, Gendy Tartakovsky. But I think that features like a caveman character who feels a lot like a Conan. With Conan's waning popularity, Marvel abandoned their rights to the character, which were scooped up for a successful run with Dark Horse in the early 2000s, and reverted briefly to Marvel on the way to current rights holder Titan Comics. The first film has been followed by sequels and spin-offs and reboots, and we'll discuss all of those after the film. The film opens with a quote in a stylish metallic font, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger, Friedrich Nietzsche." We hear an introductory voiceover from Mako, who plays a wizard in the film. An unnamed wizard.
Between the time when the oceans drank Atlantis and the rise of the sons of Arius, there was an age undreamed of. And unto this, Conan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow. It is I, his chronicler, who alone can tell thee of his saga. Let me tell you of the days of high adventure.
I feel like they're trying to stick a whole lot of exposition in there that is completely irrelevant to the entire rest of the film.
It's still pretty epic, though, and it's not like overbearing. It's just enough where it's like, okay, I get it, mythology. Let's jump in.
But none of that's like, it doesn't come up.
No, it should have if they'd completed like a 6-film series, but they didn't get to the Aquilonian throne. This narration was originally intended to be read by Conan himself, but Universal executives were not convinced that audiences could even understand Arnold's accent at the time, and the decision was ultimately made to have Conan's wizard friend do the narrating.
The one with the second strongest accent in the film.
But he's also a voice actor by trade.
No, it's just a funny, it's a funny choice. Yeah. Like, it's like you could have had Valeria, or it would have been weird for
James Earl Jones.
Yeah, it would have been weird for him to have done it, but...
Aha! Shall we say 100 America? Aha!
And...
The specific words of this prologue are paraphrased from one of the first Conan stories, 1932's The Phoenix on the Sword, which started as a recycled Cull story. Suddenly, a bright orange stripe floods across the screen from the top left to the bottom right. We recognize the fluid as molten steel, filling the mold of a broadsword. Then we see a man lit only by the glowing sword, hammering at the weapon on an anvil. 2 people pull together on a rope to lift the bellows, keeping the fire hot enough to work with. While the man continues working on the weapon, he is watched from the darkness by his wife and son. In the morning light, we see a glowing sword pointed to the sky and then plunged in a snowbank.
Am I wrong, or like, you're supposed to...
fold it over a bunch of times?
You're supposed to forge it, which means like literally like hammer out the steel in order to strengthen it, and then quench it and all that stuff.
You don't just pour it into the shape of a sword?
I thought that casting makes it much weaker.
I don't think that we're seeing the whole process. I think he must be folding it over a bunch of times.
But like, why cast it into the shape of a sword? You're supposed to just start with like square stock and then like hammer it out.
I thought you were supposed to like fold it 1,000 times.
Well, yeah,
Isn't that what,
too.
Well, that's for a katana. I don't know if a broadsword is done that way.
But that actual
steel.
But that process of hammering it over and over repeatedly is like hardening the steel.
Yeah. The cooling and the heating and the cooling constantly.
Yeah. Next, we see hands chiseling a decorative skull handle for the weapon, and then a stone is dragged the length of it to sharpen the blade. When it's finished, it shimmers. We jump from the dark forge to snow-capped mountains as Conan's father teaches him the ways of the world. The man gifts his sword to young Conan. While author Howard did write of Conan's belief in Crom, that was actually a different Conan character from a different story, but the film folds Howard's lesser-known Conan into the famous one. The name Crom likely comes from Crom Cruach, who is a Celtic god of Ireland. We jump forward to a group of men on horseback with skull helmets marching through snow, and then cut to Conan's quiet village. People work mills, Conan's father seems to be the local blacksmith, and at the edge of the village, Conan is the first to spot the approaching raiders. The townspeople are quickly panicking. Some manage to fight back, but for the most part, it's a brutal slaughtering of the village. Conan's mother finds him and holds him tight while his father defends the people, capably taking down several invading horsemen. One rides a horse straight through a thatched roof into a hut, while others toss torches to set the village ablaze. Conan's father is ultimately struck in the back with an axe, and when he collapses to the ground, he is savagely mauled by a pair of large dogs. His blood-stained sword is tossed through the air and stabs into the snow. By the end of the battle, Conan and his mother seem the only survivors. She stands with her own sword at the ready to defend her son, while two approaching raiders remove their helmets to inspect the sword of Conan's father. We'll come to know these two warriors as Rexor and Thorgrim.
Sorry.
Yep. I don't know if they even say their names in the movie.
They don't, because I kept trying to figure out who these two were.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to look them up specifically, because I'm like, oh, they kind of look familiar. I want to see if they've done anything else.
Rexor is the one with the more pronounced helmet hair.
Yeah.
Somebody says Rexor, because
yes.
Somebody says like, now Rexor is asking me questions. It's like, okay, but I still don't know who that is.
Right. Oh, now this guy's asking me questions.
The one with the mustache. His helmet is very interesting because the shape of the top of it, the way the kind of the horns come up, are very reminiscent of Midna's helmet from Twilight Princess.
Yeah,
which is also an item that you can get in Breath of the Wild. You can get Midna's.
Yeah,
I was like, man, I wonder if they just got the idea for those, or if it's a common kind of symbol.
Yeah, Midna is definitely based on Thorgrim.
There you go.
The men are soon joined by their leader, a more thoroughly armored man named Thulsa Doom, and played by James Earl Jones, sporting an awful wig cut into Courtney Cox's Scream 3 bangs.
It's an amazing wig.
It's pretty fun.
It's so silky.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's so smooth and shimmery and shiny and perfect.
Yeah, he definitely keeps himself out of danger and away from any hair damage. No split ends here. They present to Doom Conan's father's sword, and as a test of the blade, he approaches the mother and son. He seems to hypnotize the woman with his deep blue eyes, and when she lowers her weapon, he uses his new sword to cleave her head from her shoulders in one swing. The camera rests on the face of young Conan, staring straight forward as his mother's head falls through frame in front of her body. As she tips away from him to fall off screen right, he eventually loses grip of her hand, and young Conan slowly comes to terms with what just happened. Thulsa recognizes the workmanship of the blade and keeps it for himself. The few survivors, mostly children, are tied together as slaves and marched north to an enormous mill in the mountains known as the Wheel of Pain. The children are shackled to the beams of the wheel and forced to push it in circles day and night for decades.
But what a great training exercise.
Right? Yeah.
But it's only leg day.
I would think so, yeah. It doesn't seem like this is doing much for your arms unless you're
is leg day.
pushing up on them. In a series of inserts, we see Conan's legs grow increasingly muscular.
Well, it's also important to note that the other kids are dying. Like,
he's the only one pushing it by the end.
Yeah, we're not seeing them die, but there's fewer and fewer kids until it's literally just him. He's the only survivor.
And they're not even raiding more villages? They should keep restocking the mill.
Maybe they graduated to the murder pits or whatever.
They're working the larger wheel.
Yeah, they're working the Wheel of Pain upstate.
It's like, I kept thinking of Homer down in the Wheel of Pain of the plant, and you see where it goes up to the little display of the donuts in the cafeteria.
Just spinning.
I wonder what makes it spin. Who cares?
His arms also swell until we see the same character in his early 20s, played by a young Arnold Schwarzenegger, in what would prove a breakout role for the soon-to-be A-lister. One day, the wheel is visited by a red-haired man, seemingly the adult version of the red-headed boy who shackled Conan here. He seems to purchase Conan from the man running the wheel. Conan is walked on a leash to another camp and made to participate in a death match with another slave for the enjoyment of a ravenous crowd. His opponent seems to have sharpened teeth, which he quickly puts to work biting Conan's neck and chest. When Conan has gathered the rules of the contest, he starts fighting back, first by bending his opponent's arm behind his back, and then slamming his head hard against the rock walls of the pit they're fighting in. He knocks the man unconscious, and the crowd celebrates his victory.
This whole sequence of, the fighting pits, I found really interesting because, to be fair, I don't follow any of the Conan stuff, right?
Sure.
So, I never read the comics, I didn't watch the TV show, nothing, right? I thought he was going to be a good guy all around. But I really don't find him being a good guy when he has to kill all these people. I realize it's to the death and he's doing it to survive, but he seems to be enjoying it.
He does. This is his first chance to finally put these muscles to work for something other than the milling of grain.
Is that what the wheel was doing?
Yeah, you can see it in the middle of the wheel.
Well, then why did they call it the Wheel of Grain?
Because that's not as snazzy. We get a quick montage of more fights, some involving weapons, but every time Conan wins handily. Conan grows to appreciate the adulation of the crowd. After many victories, Conan is sent to the best fighters in the world for training in various martial arts and swordplay. One day, a young woman is even brought naked to his cage, and a crowd press against its bars to watch Conan mate with her. Potentially against her will? Can't really tell for sure. She's not objecting very loudly, but she doesn't seem totally comfortable here.
Well, at first he covers her. I was like,
right.
Oh, okay.
And then he uncovers her.
Yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
We cut now to a gambling den of sorts where Conan sits in the middle of a table like some kind of human centerpiece. Not human centipede. We hear the first spoken words of the film as the men argue over life's great pleasures. One man hazards a guess.
The open steppe, fleet horse, falcons at your wrist, and the wind in your hair.
Wrong!
But a Mongol general tells him he's wrong and asks Conan to correct him.
Conan, what is best in life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women. That is good.
This is the Conan quote that plays as a part of this season's opening montage for the podcast, possibly the first we've encountered because this is one of our biggest titles of the year so far. In fact, outside of playing himself in documentaries and Bob Rafelson's 76 film Stay Hungry, these would likely have been the first words any American audience would have heard from Arnold at all, since his only previous performances were dubbed over in Hercules in New York, or he had no lines in The Long Goodbye. Supposedly, Conan is paraphrasing a quote often attributed to famed historical conqueror Genghis Khan. The great enjoyment of a man is to overcome his enemies, drive them before him, snatch what they have, to see the people to whom they are dear with their families' faces bathed in tears, to ride their horses, to squeeze in his arms their daughters and women. In the middle of the night, Conan's master cuts his bindings and releases Conan to be a free man. I don't know why.
My guess is that he's winning too many fights.
Yeah, they were just like, it's all rigged, like there's no point.
Yeah, exactly.
No one's coming to gamble anymore because the same person's winning every fight.
Exactly. It's like, I don't want to put my best guy against Conan. I'm not even going to bother.
It's like, all right, get out of here. You're not helping. The next day, Conan carries his still dangling chains and desperately outruns a pack of wild dogs. Apparently, Arnold was actually injured on set running from them when he fell from these stones as he climbed them.
I picture him on set falling from the stones, but doing the classic Arnold. Yeah,
basically. Yeah. His eyes are bulging out of his head like he's on the Martian surface for some reason. I guess the dogs were like legitimately attacking him too when he fell.
Okay.
So he climbs these boulders on a hill and tumbles violently down into a chamber below the rocks. He builds a small fire within this structure to keep warm, and in its glow he spots a throne across the cavern still occupied by a skeleton donning a fancy ceremonial headdress with a sword in one hand. Conan relieves the bones of their sword and taps the blade against a stone pedestal to crack off centuries of rust. That's how that works, right?
Yeah.
Just tap rust on something and then it just falls off.
Yep.
Pristine blade. The clanging sends the king's bones tumbling to the floor, and Conan has decided this skeleton is his god Crom, and the sword is Crom's gift.
Crom.
He climbs back out of the boulder pile and cleaves his chains from his legs with one slice of the new sword. After another day's walking, he comes upon a stone hut, and the woman inside invites Conan to warm himself by her fire. Inside, she crawls around on all fours and tosses a scoop of flash powder into the flames to surprise him. She claims a prophecy foretold of his arrival, a man from the north, a future king.
One who would crush the snakes of the earth.
Snakes? Did you say snakes?
What is it you seek?
A standard. A symbol. Perhaps on a shield. Two snakes coming together. Facing each other. But they're one.
She promises to set him on the path of the snake cult in exchange for a night of lovemaking. She groans out directions during sex.
Crossroads of the world. You will find what you want in Zamora.
Do you guys recall the last time we mentioned the crossroads of the world, and in turn that viral video of a girl viciously roasting our terrible city of Los Angeles?
I remember the video.
Crossroads of the world, my dick.
Why we were talking about that, I don't remember.
It took place in Los Angeles. We saw the same crossroads of the world she mentions in that video.
Yeah, no, I know that.
Anything you can remember that was shot on like Sunset Boulevard in the Hollywood area?
What was the night something?
It does take place predominantly at night.
Vice Squad?
That's it.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Oh, do you recall the last movie where a woman gives nonsensical directions during sex?
During sex? Was it Soup for One?
Yeah.
She's like 68 degrees or whatever. The woman's groaning gets more guttural and zooly until her eyes turn reptilian, and she's suddenly screeching and clawing at Conan with a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth like his first opponent in the ring. He struggles free from her grasp and rolls toward the fireplace before tossing her fully into the flames. The witch emerges from the flames as a sentient fireball and bounces off the walls of the stone hut until Conan watches her float toward the horizon outside. So unless he thinks she was Crom too, it's possible this is just something he says when he's amazed. Maybe he doesn't think the Skeleton King was Crom.
But that's something that happens on the animated series. Like,
he says Crom a lot?
He says Crom whenever something like when he has like a revelation or something like that.
That's Conan's, "Excuse me, princess." Conan stays the rest of the night in this haunted shack, and when he emerges in the morning, he finds a starving man chained to a wall beside it. Conan refuses at first to feed him, and the man introduces himself.
"I am Subotai, thief and archer."
When Conan asks what he's doing here, Subotai jokes that he is wolf food, and jokes are how you win Conan over, so we dissolve right to them sharing dinner that night, rabbits roasted on a spit. They compare religious beliefs. Subotai is Hyrcanian and prays to the four winds. Conan says he believes in Crom, but rarely prays since it's never done much good. He explains to Subotai that upon his death, Conan will be asked the riddle of steel, and his place in the afterlife will be won or lost on the strength of his answer. The men run together to the nearest large city. On a dissolve in the marketplace, Conan is suddenly munching on a lizard on a stick because apparently they cut around the director cameo of John Milius as a lizard meat monger. Eventually, the two make their way through the village asking about the snake cult, and a man tells them of the fast-expanding cult of Set with towers in every city. He follows up the tip by selling them a bit of Black Lotus to get them stoned to bejesus a bit. They spend the rest of the night stumbling drunkenly around when Conan accidentally backs into a camel and spins to punch the animal to the floor.
Yeah.
He totally punches a camel.
He doesn't actually hit the camel.
He punches a camel
but
here.
It looks so good, especially that the stumble and fall over that the camel does in the second shot. I really love the look of it.
I was so convinced that he punched a camel that I looked it up and it said he punched a camel.
I've read that many places too, but you can see him pull this punch. And it seems so planned the way he backs into it.
I was gonna say, do you remember the last film where someone was punched out a rideable animal?
Would that be Mongo in Blazing Saddles? The show of strength draws the attention of a crowd, so the men sneak off together again. They're headed now to the Tower of the Serpent, where the cult of Set keeps untold treasures, including an enormous ruby called the Eye of the Serpent.
And just the hardest damn place to get into.
Right?
It's like, is this how everybody gets in?
Yeah, we all have to scale the concrete pillar in the middle of town.
Like it's a Mallory gallery.
Exactly. A nearly impregnable fortress. As they get closer to the tower, they encounter another warrior. A blonde woman we'll come to know as Valeria. She draws her weapon, seemingly prepared to take on both men at once, but when they see she's not a guard here, the three join forces. Because she's not completely wrecked on Black Lotus, she's thought far enough ahead to bring a rope, but accuses these men of not being prepared for what lies inside either.
Two fools who laugh at death. Do you know what horrors lie beyond that wall?
No.
Then you go first.
But what good's the rope?
That's how you get up to the top and how you get over it.
But how?
What do you mean, but how?
So you're at the
Have
bottom
you ever
of a
seen
tower.
Batman?
Yeah, he
throw
has
your rope up and then
grappling hook.
He has a grappling hook launcher that fires it up into the air.
But there's statues and shit on the top. You throw up a rope and you wrap around it.
Sure.
Yeah. That's how I would have done it. The Subotai doesn't even bother with the rope.
I mean, yeah, have him fire an arrow with the rope or something.
Yeah.
But it's just it just cuts to rope is already all the way up the top of the tower.
I think it's more for the escape than it is for the climb, honestly. She generously shares her rope, but it looks like Subotai doesn't even use it because he scales the sheer concrete pillar with a couple ice axes. From atop the Serpent Tower, Subotai is disgusted by the smell wafting up from inside it, but Valeria urges them to climb down anyway.
Do you want to live forever?
Do you guys recall the last time we heard a character ask a similar question in a Dino De Laurentiis film? Oh, well, who wants to live forever?
I don't know.
Flash Gordon. That was Brian Blessed.
Oh, well, who wants to live forever?
I was trying to identify it from your voice.
Yeah.
And I was going to Tarzan the Ape Man.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, was that who? Did he say something like that in there?
No, it does sound like him too.
Yeah.
They lower themselves into the Serpent Temple, and sneaking around in the background of some occulty ceremony, Valeria points out a high priest we'll come to know as Rexor, second in command to the cult leader Thulsa Doom.
They say Thulsa Doom's 1,000 years old.
Valeria will keep an eye on the ceremony and sends Conan and Subotai below to the treasure chamber, which is guarded by an enormous snake in a room decorated with several snake emblems, like that one snake swallowing its own tail.
Ouroboros?
I don't know what that means.
It's called Ouroboros.
I don't think so. But anyway, above the chamber's coiled anaconda is an enormous egg-sized ruby. Upstairs, a woman is being sacrificed to the cult, and when we see Rexor the priest from the front, it's one of the horsemen that invaded Conan's village and killed his people and parents.
I like what Valeria is doing here too. Like, she spots a girl in the back row.
Right.
And then next time it cuts to her, is this Valeria is the girl. The girl's gone.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Nicely done.
It's like an Old Spice commercial.
Yeah.
Now you're the girl. Just as Conan dislodges the egg ruby from its stand, his sweat drips into the eye of the coiled guard snake. Upstairs, Valeria has already dressed in the same ceremonial garb as the rest of the crowd and sneaks closer for a better view of the sacrifice. Leaving the treasure chamber, Conan spots the standard of the snake cult, a logo of a snake with a head at both ends. Conan has a quick flashback vision of Thulsa Doom in his village, and he pockets the snake emblem as a clue. Meanwhile, the anaconda sneaks up on him, but Conan catches it under the jaw with his blade and stabs it through the head. I love this puppet they're using.
Yeah, it's great.
The snake is great, but I feel like we should have done more with it. Like,
Yeah.
we don't get enough of a battling the snake fight. He just kills it immediately.
But it's gushing blood all over the place. It looks really cool.
All the blood impacts in
Really
this movie
wonderful,
are fantastic.
Yeah. While he wrestles on the floor with it, Subotai fires arrows into the bulk of the beast, and these were real arrows being fired past Arnold by the director himself, John Milius.
That's terrifying.
Do you guys recall the last time we saw filmmakers firing arrows so near the film's cast? Last time the archer was Tom Savini.
Was it Knight Riders?
Nope. Literally arrows at an archery range. The first Friday the 13th.
Oh.
He fires arrows directly over the girl's shoulder. And it's supposed to be the prankster guy doing it, and she screams at him. Conan hacks the snake's head from its body just as the sacrifice upstairs is coaxed into the pit. The crowd finally realize what's happened to their serpent, and everyone scatters to chase after Conan and Subotai, but they make their escape with the treasure.
I like the concept, too, that this girl has to, like, jump into the snake pit, expecting to be eaten by a snake and not have to, like, deal with the pain of having fallen 20 feet into a snake pit.
But she's somehow sadder to find a dead snake down there.
Yeah, because now she's, like, going, like her legs are broken and now she's just stuck down there.
Valeria catches up with Rexor just as he's closing in on her friends and shoves the man out of her way. She grabs her rope to the rooftop and wraps it around a henchman's neck before throwing him down the well of the tower so she can ride the opposite end of the rope up like a pulley system. The stuntman doubling Rexor here is the famed Terry Leonard, who we discussed at length in our reviews of The Lone Ranger and Raiders of the Lost Ark, and when she dropped him here, he missed the cardboard padding and broke his leg at the bottom of the well. Actress Sandahl Bergman was understandably apologetic, and even though it was hardly her fault, Leonard reportedly used this sympathetic leverage to talk her into a few dates after the film's production. I think we see a very similar move toward the end of John Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China when everyone's trying to escape Lopan's stronghold and a henchman is thrown down a hole and then someone holds onto the rope and uses him as a counterbalance to lift himself up. Reunited at the rooftop, Valeria asks again if her friends intend to live forever before jumping clear down to a pool below. Later, we see Valeria and Conan in a bar divvying up the loot from this heist. Conan tucks the enormous ruby into her palm, and she leans forward to kiss him.
I would have gotten out of town.
Yeah, maybe not right next door, get a drink.
It's like, yeah, it's time to go.
Isn't this how everyone also gets down? Like, aren't they all going to jump straight into that pool and then be one step behind you?
I mean, I assume that there's some other way to get into this temple.
There has to be, right?
Like,
they can't not have a rope and have no way to get out of it.
Yeah.
That night, we see them strip each other and make love for what could be several days. When we see them next, they're drunk again in town, making out and laughing until it appears Conan has been drugged and he passes out face first in his soup. A crew of guards collect Conan and Valeria and deliver them to the aged King Osric, played by Max von Sydow. The king wonders aloud where the third thief has ended up, and Valeria claims Subotai was eaten by lions. But then Subotai is dragged in and tossed at their feet, proving they can't be trusted. At first, Osric seems upset by the stir they caused thieving the Serpent Temple, but it turns out he's impressed and grateful to see this invading force made to look so publicly foolish. He has a quest for them. Thulsa Doom has brainwashed Osric's own daughter into his cult, and the king wishes to see her returned. As payment, he offers a gallon of rubies up front and as many more as they can carry. These gems mean nothing to him now.
So many rubies.
Right.
Like it just seems like you have so many similar sized rubies. It's like were these all larger rubies?
Is this part of the same order?
There's more. There's much more. Enough to become kings yourself.
There comes a time, thief, when the jewels cease to sparkle, when the gold loses its luster, when the throne room becomes a prison, and all that is left is a father's love for his child.
As tempting as the offer is, Valeria seems ready to turn the jewels down in the face of the impossible task ahead, but Conan is already committed to ending the cult that took his parents and people. Valeria reminds Conan how much they've already lost between them, and that they could leave now, with each other at least, but Conan finally has a true purpose and intends to see it through. In the morning, she learns Conan left in the night, and in his place he left her the prize of the initial tower heist. She looses a single tear.
I feel like this plotline's a little weird, because he was already seeking the snake people.
Right.
But why do we have to give him another reason to seek the snake people?
It's not really necessary, you're right. But it doesn't seem like he's still on their path when they're just getting drunk in town. It seems like he's just like, all right, I got revenge. I stuck it to them by stealing their stuff and killing their snake. And then this is like, oh shit, they're actually doing real damage to people and taking families apart, and I need to finish what I started.
I feel like you need one or the other. You either need to really lean into it's giving this guy back his daughter, and Conan feels for him, and he has to do this, or he has to avenge his family.
I think it would have made more sense if he didn't realize he was even stealing from the snake cult until he was leaving the temple. When he first saw that logo, I think that'd have been better if that was him realizing for the first time, oh, wait, these are the same people that killed my parents.
And he can't stay because he's running for his life or whatever.
I think it would have worked best if Osric gave him information he didn't have.
Yeah.
Like where Thulsa is.
Right.
Yeah,
and so it's like, I'll tell you where he is if you go get my daughter back.
But he already knows. Crossroads of the world, Zamora, right there, deeper, deeper. I assume those were additional directions.
There's a really great dissolve here, too.
Yeah.
From her to the next scene is it's like this. It's like almost like 20 seconds long.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Conan shows the snake emblem to the people of the desert on the path to Thulsa Mountain of Power. Conan comes to a Stonehenge-esque assortment of rocks crowded with human skeletons, and nearby he encounters the film's humble narrator, a wizard played by Mako.
It was here that I met my master. It was no accident, nor is it mere chance that I am the teller of his tale.
The wizard introduces himself and his powers with the threat of summoning demons to attack Conan, but when Conan just laughs, the wizard can't help but join him, and another truce is formed. That night, the wizard tells Conan of Thulsa and his cult, and in the morning, he sends Conan on his way with the gift of a camel and flowers.
Warrior! What are the flowers for?
For girl!
Conan rides the camel to within earshot of Thulsa robed congregation, and he mixes into a crowd as they chant Doom's name. He's hit on by a cultist priest who sees him backing away from the crowd.
I'm afraid. Afraid? To bear yourself? Why? You're so big and so well grown. You should be proud of your body.
Conan invites the priest to continue this conversation in private.
Can we talk over there around this rock?
Yeah. It's going to be good, I promise. Once they're out of sight of the others, he knocks the man unconscious and steals his robe. Constructed on the side of a mountain is an enormous staircase leading to the Serpent Temple. Thulsa main goons, Rexor and Thorgrim from the village massacre at the start of the film, move down the steps first. Everywhere he moves around the temple, Conan shows the guards the snake emblem he stole from them as though it were a backstage pass, and they look increasingly suspicious of the relic until one takes it from him. The guard points Thulsa's second and third in command toward Conan as he watches a speech from Thulsa, and they quickly apprehend him. The crowd are bloodthirsty as the infidel is carried away to be punished. Conan is tortured for hours and then propped up before Thulsa. At first, he wants to know what happened to the big stolen jewel, but ultimately admits his biggest gripe.
You killed my snake. Thorgrim is beside himself with grief. He raised that snake from the time it was born.
You killed my mother. You killed my father. You killed my people. You took my father's sword.
Must have been when I was younger.
When Thulsa recognizes Conan as a follower of Crom, he offers to share the riddle of steel. Contrary to the words of Conan's own father, Thulsa claims the steel is nothing without the flesh to wield it, and by that logic, flesh is much stronger. As a demonstration, he points to a girl standing on a narrow ledge 182 feet above them and coaxes her down with a simple flick of his wrist. On his command, without the coaxing of a blade, she willingly sacrifices herself, diving straight down to him and crashing through the platform to her death. This jump was performed by stuntwoman Corey Jansen and set the all-time women's freefall record for a stunt.
Wow.
That is strength, boy. That is power. The strength and power of flesh. What is steel compared to the hand that wields it?
He orders Conan to be crucified to the Tree of Woe to contemplate this revelation. We see Conan nailed in an X shape to the branches of a gnarled tree in the desert. He's descended upon by a pack of vultures, and when one gets too close, Conan bites down on its neck to kill it. Apparently this was like an actual dead vulture, the one that he takes the bite out of, because he couldn't bite through the skin of the fake vulture that they were using as a puppet. And then immediately they had to like wash his mouth out with antiseptic so that he didn't just die from vulture carcass.
That's really gross.
The following morning, Conan sees his friend...
Do we not remember the last time our hero was crucified?
Do you guys recall the last time our hero was crucified?
Yes.
When was that?
God, what was the name of that movie?
I'll give you a clue.
Yeah, it's like... It's
in the same genre as this
one.
Is
it just Sword and Sorcery? Was that what it was called?
Nope.
Wizards and Warriors?
Nope. You were very close with your first guess.
I don't actually remember the name of that movie.
Yeah,
it's not called Sword and Sorcery. It's called
The Sword
and
the Sorcerer.
There you go.
There you go.
The Sword and the Sorcerer.
I was really hoping you would remember.
I remember it happening.
I was just like,
I don't remember dumb titles of these movies.
The following morning, Conan sees his friend Subotai cresting a hill on the horizon to come save him. Conan looks like he's been pinned up here for several days, and Subotai and Valeria bring him to the wizard in the hopes that his magic can save Conan. The wizard says he might have the power, but it comes at a cost.
The spirit of this place extract a heavy toll.
Then I will pay them.
I like Valeria says, "Did the gods owe you any favors?" And Mako goes, yeah. He's like, yeah, they do.
They owe me favors. I don't owe him any favors, so they're not his to accept. The wizard completely covers Conan's skin with intricate painted symbols. He grunts and groans indecipherably, and Conan is left suspended on wires just above the ground overnight. In the darkness, the wizard warns that spirits of these lands will try to take Conan's body from them. It's up to his friends to protect him from their reach. A storm grows overhead, and translucent ghosts pour down from the heavens toward Conan's unconscious body. One at a time, his friends fight off each spirit to tear them away from the sleeping warrior. Most of the opticals in this film were created by a company called VCE, Visual Concepts Engineering, but the ghost scene was a cooperation between VCE and ILM. So Industrial Light and Magic did a lot of this. In the end, it seems Valeria's tireless efforts have succeeded. The storm clears and the ghosts have given up on this prize. In the light of morning, Conan awakens to Valeria standing over him.
All the gods, they cannot sever us. If I were dead and you still fighting for life, I'd come back from the darkness, back from the pit of hell, to fight at your side.
These ghosts actually reminded me of the ones from Raiders.
Yeah.
Which is also probably ILM.
Yeah. It was ILM and Richard Edlund who does the special effects for Ghostbusters also.
Yeah, which also has that
very
vibe
similar
going.
look.
Yeah.
Apparently the first draft of this effect looked too much like Raiders, and so they had to redo the whole thing and make it a little bit more animated.
I thought you were going to say it reminds you of the ghosts and Ghost, the demons that come and take you when if you guys
I've never seen Ghost actually.
Oh man, the I can't remember the name of the animator, but he created these really crazy shadow ghosts, and they come from the scene.
Oh, interesting.
So like you have like a scene with really high contrast shadows, but then the shadows just peel away from the scene, and there's no shadows there, and they become these really torturous demons that come and grab you.
That sounds cool.
It's like, oh, it's terrifying. That's what this reminded me of.
Later, fully revived, we see Conan practicing with his sword in a gentle coastal breeze near a beach. Because the broadswords in the film were forged as authentically as possible, only Arnold was capable of wielding them because of his incredible strength. Beside a campfire that night, Subotai shares information that although Thulsa Doom's fortress is built into the side of a mountain, there are rear entrance caves that they could sneak into to steal the princess. Valeria and Subotai know the quest is hopeless if Conan attempts to avenge his people at the same time, and they beg him to save vengeance for another day, but he doesn't respond. He just glares angrily. The three set off for Thulsa Doom's fortress, and when they spot caves glowing with flames inside, they stop to paint themselves in black and white dazzle camouflage. Inside the caves, we see what looks like the mines from Temple of Doom, but this might actually be a kitchen. It's lit like a dark room, in dim red, and workers hack away at human corpses on the floor as enormous pots of soup are carried out of the room by rows of servants.
Yeah, it would remind me of what we'll see later in Ridley Scott's Legend.
Sure, yeah. Our trio follow the men carrying the soup through the caves to an orgy hall. A servant ladles heaping spoonfuls of the slimy green soup into bowls for the orgy participants, and the first bowl has a human hand floating in it. The girl carrying it to the orgy floor takes a bite of one finger. Subotai is already sold on this whole cult.
So this is paradise.
They spot the princess kneeling before Thulsa Doom on his throne, watching over the orgy from above. As he watches the crowd, Thulsa's eyes become reptilian, and soon his face bulges into the shape of a snake snout. His hands retract into his sleeves, and then he has a full-on snake face all of a sudden. Now, our heroes surround the orgy covertly, and Thulsa Doom slithers out of his human robes. Valeria and Subotai start distraction fires and climb their way toward the princess.
This seems kind of silly to me. There's two moments in this film where they set things on fire. This is like an entirely stone structure.
Right, yeah.
There is just...
all that's here is like a sheer fabric.
Yeah, I was going to say, there happens to be some drapes in this room, but like nothing in this place is going to burn, right, inside or out.
Yeah.
I knew we shouldn't have built these columns out of sulfur.
Terrible idea. Subotai attacks the soup servant by swinging a blade up at the man's neck and cutting his throat. And Valeria gets my favorite kill of the film, taking on two guards at once, slashing both across the belly, and brutally lopping the second one's head off in one swing. That looks so fucking cool when she cuts his head off.
No, I think there's like 3 or 4 head cutting off in this movie, and they are all fantastic.
Yeah. They continue around the room, killing every man they see, and when Valeria reaches the princess in the throne room, she sees Thulsa's snake form has escaped through a hole in the wall. Rexor and Thorgrim appear to join the fight, and Conan spills the soylent soup down the stairs to slow them down.
Did you purposely try to make every line of this like full of alliteration?
No, it just happens. I'm just a poetic soul, a poetic person, you might say. Purely a poetic person. Patrick is purely a poetic person.
Shut up.
They recognize Conan and seem shocked to find him alive, despite certainly noticing he disappeared from the Tree of Woe at some point. Unless it just eats people eventually, I don't know. They swing hammers at Conan and miss, inadvertently breaking the weight-bearing marble columns of this fortress. The heroes escape, carrying the princess with them, and Valeria kicks major ass all the way out of this structure. Thulsa, back in human form, digs his henchmen from the orgy hall rubble.
Infidel defilers. They shall all drown in lakes of blood. Now they will know why they are afraid of the dark. Now they will learn why they fear the night.
Stepping out of his cave fortress, Thulsa magically straightens a small snake into a solid arrow and fires it at the departing heroes, striking Valeria in her side. Conan catches her before she falls from her horse. As they lay her down in the dirt to withdraw the snake arrow, she knows already this is the price she must pay for Conan's resurrection. Incredibly, after Conan pulls the snake from her side, it coils back up. This is a live snake he was yanking out of her fake wound. It looks so cool because it's fully straight as he's yanking it out because he's pulling it out of her. And then as soon as it's free, it curls back up and it's moving. It's alive. She begs Conan to hold her close as she sees the end coming. She holds on to him for warmth and then fades away. Conan seems to regret his unspoken promise to avoid vengeance on Thulsa today. We cut to Valeria atop a funeral pyre in the night. Conan sets the pyre ablaze, and they watch from a distance as she burns. The wizard sees Subotai crying and asks why, as if he didn't have an obvious reason, but he claims to be crying for Conan.
He is Conan, Pthumerian. He won't cry. So I cry for him.
Watching the fire burn out, Conan tears off his own necklace medallion and replaces it with Valeria's, the one he gifted her after the initial tower heist with the ruby gemstone.
Yeah, I don't know why he was still wearing the wheel necklace. That seems to be kind of like your old life.
Yeah. For some reason, they've chained the princess to a stone on a hill. She still seems brainwashed by Thulsa Doom and assures them they'll be killed for taking her. Conan and Subotai set about booby-trapping this Stonehenge graveyard, not unlike sequences we'll see later from Arnold in Predator.
Yeah, there's like serious Predator vibes going on here.
And these moments also seem borrowed from the third act of Kurosawa's Seven Samurai.
We'll also see these similar setups in First Blood.
That's true. A lot of punji traps.
Gotta rub feces on the
You gotta do it. You gotta do it, guys. Conan takes a moment to reminisce on the peaceful childhood this cult stole from him. He and Subotai set many spring-loaded spike traps and barriers to fend off an oncoming horde of enemies. Mako's wizard character steals heavy-duty armor from some of the warriors buried here, and they all dress for battle. We see Thulsa Doom's forces thundering across the plains toward them as Conan, Subotai, and the wizard wait for battle. Conan says his first ever prayer. Crom, I have never prayed to you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought or why we died. No, all that matters is that two stood against many. That's what's important. Valor pleases you. Crom, so grant me one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you! Thulsa's men ride full speed between the upright stones of the booby-trapped cemetery, and Conan clotheslines several of them from their horses with an axe swing to the chest. Others are knocked from their horses and impaled on the rows of sharpened sticks. Some even manage to knock Conan to the ground, but he always bounces back, ready to fight with another weapon. He and Subotai take turns luring warriors into traps and attacking them from behind. Subotai takes up a bow and arrow to pierce more warriors, attempting to steal back the princess from her stone shackles. Conan takes a disorienting hammer swing to the face from Thorgrim, and when Rexor charges him to take advantage of the injury, Conan kneels to cut the man's horse's legs out from under him. Subotai is caught off guard and stabbed in the ass with a spear when even the wizard gets in on the fun, leaping in to kill the invader with another spear to rescue the thief. Amusingly, the armor is too heavy for the wizard, and he struggles to roll back onto his feet for the rest of the fight. He even seems a bit traumatized to have taken part in the bloodshed.
That's how we do it!
I did it! With my spear!
As Thorgrim sneaks between the stones, he thinks he sees Conan hiding behind one, and brings his hammer down hard on a protruding helmet. Unfortunately for him, he accidentally triggers one of the spring-loaded spike traps, which swings a sharpened branch straight through his chest. Conan rises before him and watches the warrior bleed out with an idle curiosity. Rexor tries to avenge Thorgrim, and Conan deflects a few sword swings with a shield, but just when he seems most vulnerable, another warrior appears. It's Valeria, in a shimmering Valkyrie form. She knocks the other goon back and asks Conan her persistent question a third time.
Do you want to live forever?
As if inviting him to join her in the afterlife. Only now, as Conan and Rexor begin their final sword duel, did I realize that Rexor is fighting with Conan's father's sword, which we saw forged under the opening titles. Conan fights back so viciously that he slices through his father's sword, symbolically surpassing his own father in strength. Conan tears slice after slice into Rexor's chest until he finally collapses in the dirt.
And there's just these big blood spurts coming off. Just
every single one of them is just splashing across Conan.
Blood.
It's beautiful. Thulsa Doom, having lost his army, rides to the top of a nearby hill. The princess calls to him for rescue, but instead he draws another snake arrow to kill her and foil their quest.
It's such an interesting character trait that
he doesn't participate.
He stays far from the danger.
Yeah.
And when his
hair is perfectly conditioned.
Yeah, as soon as he's lost, it's like, well, I'm out of here.
I got a manicure at 6.
And a man to kill at 7.
That's good.
No, don't kill me! Father!
He fires on the princess, and Subotai scrambles up the hill to catch the snake arrow in his shield and save the girl. Thulsa retreats to his fortress as Conan inspects the shattered remains of his father's sword. He raises the broken weapon and his own to the sky as if to thank Crom for protecting them this day. Back at his own fortress, Thulsa Doom stands at the top of the hillside stairs, over 1,000 followers in cloaks chanting his name. In the darkness, we see Conan sneaking through the temple from behind, discreetly killing guards as the princess leads him directly to Thulsa. Thulsa dictates his authority to his followers and orders them to spread across the land, cleansing it of any other organized forces. The princess, accompanying Conan, seems almost re-hypnotized by his simple proximity, and Thulsa Doom senses Conan approaching behind him. The two men square off, and Thulsa addresses Conan as a son, in a desperate attempt to win the barbarian over.
For who now is your father if it is not me? Who gave you the will to live? I am the wellspring from which you flow. When I am gone, you will have never been. What will your world be without me? My son.
His eyes struggle to penetrate Conan's furious rage, and for a moment he seems turned by the words. An insert of Conan's hand on the hilt of his sword even suggests he may drop the weapon, but instead he raises it high and tears it down into Thulsa's collarbone, ejecting yet another glorious spray of bright red blood. Rather than decapitate this villain in a single swing, he works back and forth, chopping from either side, to dig Thulsa's head from his shoulders. The followers cry and panic below, and when Conan has broken the head free of the body, the torso falls away, and Conan lifts the head by its hair before tossing it down the steps, asserting his dominance over the entire congregation. Only now does he drop his sword, unintimidated by the crowd of followers, who seek no retribution. They simply drop their torches in a nearby pool and walk away from the cult, broken from their leader's trance. It's a literal example of the trope of cutting off the snake's head and killing its body.
But not the cutting off the head and 2 more gross.
Right, yeah. It's not the Hydra one. It's the snake one. We cut now to Conan, hours later, seated on the steps with one hand on his chin like Rodin's thinker, reflecting on the quest he fulfilled and the vengeance he has taken. One cloaked follower remains beside the pool, and Conan sees it's the princess. He collects a hanging pot of fire and swings it by its chain over his head like a mace. He hurls it backward at the face of Thulsa's temple, and it clangs off a balcony and comes to rest at the top of the stairs. According to IMDb trivia, this throw was meant to land inside the temple, but it started the intended fire where it landed, so they just used this take, because it was all they had. But it was supposed to go over the wall into the building, and the flame was supposed to start there. The princess bows to Conan, and he walks past her, uninterested in her servitude or worship. The temple is engulfed in flames, and Conan reaches for her hand to lead her home to King Osric.
Again, what is burning here?
It's the stone. Actual structure.
But it's all stone.
Yeah, in real life it wouldn't be burning. Yeah, for sure.
But I'm just amazed at how much it erupts into flames here. I'm like, it's a stone tower.
But this is literally how they destroyed the set when they were done with it. They literally burned the whole thing down.
Right, but the set wasn't really made of stone.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, right. I got that.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I mean, so it's like, unless they, like, the stonemasons who built the temple also covered it in some kind of paint that is just really flammable.
Better hope you don't need any reshoots.
Yeah.
What a way to wrap a film, though.
Yeah.
Like, just burn down the sets like Stanley Kubrick.
Gone with the Wind. We jump cut to sunrise as the temple disappears in a massive fireball on the hillside. Conan literally carries the princess to Osric, and we get an epilogue over a much older Conan seated in the golden throne of his future kingdom.
So did Conan return the wayward daughter of King Osric to her home, and having no further concern, he and his companions sought adventure in the west. Many wars and feuds did Conan fight. Honor and fear were heaped upon his name. In time, he became a king by his own hand. This story shall also be told.
We fade to black, and then the standard of the cult of Set fills the screen, a medallion of a 2-headed snake, as the credits play out over the logo. The end. Conan the Barbarian. I think it has some pacing issues in the middle, but I think I really like the performances from all of these people. This is one of my favorite Arnold performances because I don't think he's ever done anything dramatic beyond this franchise. It's always straight action or obvious comedy stuff.
Yeah.
But I think he actually gets more to do here than I remembered, and he actually doesn't suck as Conan.
I think everyone's great in this.
Yeah.
I think it looked so much better than I was anticipating. I was anticipating like Hercules in New York all over again.
Right, yeah.
But it looked great. But it was so boring. I was bored the whole time. I mean, we just needed more action and head chopping, and like just it should have just been a bloodbath the entire movie.
I think we could have done with fewer of the like religious discussions around a campfire and stuff like that. Definitely moving the action set pieces closer together would help a lot because it does need some tightening. And it's over 2 hours, doesn't need to be over 2 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's so great, and there's not any action scene that I wasn't completely satisfied by.
I've seen this movie a couple of times, and I know I've seen the one of the other ones. I think I've only ever seen Red Sonja. I don't think I've ever seen The Destroyer.
Okay.
So they kind of blur together a little bit. But I've always really enjoyed the movie. I agree it is too long. Definitely some parts that that you could use some trims, but it's just such a grisly, like, unique kind of adventure, like
like a hard R action sword and sorcery thing. You don't see that very often.
Exactly, because like the Sword and the Sorcerer was what, PG?
I assume, and even Excalibur wasn't hard R. You're not seeing like this kind of violent, bloody stuff. There is a lot of nudity in
There's a lot of nudity. That's where the R comes in.
Birth on camera, right?
Yeah. That's just biology, guys.
But the blood and guts of that movie was very covered by armor.
Right, yes.
This is everyone's exposed, and when someone gets cut, you just see a blood splatter.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy the film, and I like everyone in it. Like I think it's fun when you have. Well, I'm gonna say it's not always fun when you have like unknowns working together, but I think that this group of people, I think they must have had them working together a lot, like forming a camaraderie, offset and onset.
I think Arnold and Subotai actually like lived together for a while.
Yeah,
or Gerry, I just call him Subotai.
Yeah.
Arnold and Subotai. But yeah, I agree that, and especially with Valeria, I love Conan's chemistry with her.
Mm-hmm.
I just love her so much as a character, and I really wish that she had gotten the spinoff instead of the Red Sonja character, which the Red Sonja character is fine, but I think Valeria is such a fascinating introduction to this story that you have basically like a clone of Conan's part in this threesome. There's just a second warrior who's every bit as capable as he is, every bit as strong and skilled, and she looks like she's as strong as he is.
Yeah, you have your D&D party of 4.
Yeah.
You got your mage, you got your rogue, and you just happen to have 2 barbarian fighter class.
Right. And when they're getting drunk and making out in the bars, like it feels like legitimately like these 2 actors just did that because they're both on a set for practically their first time. They don't really know what they're doing. They're having fun making this movie together. And I feel like they genuinely enjoyed each other's company. They both enjoyed making the movie and being there with each other. And it just feels like such a pure relationship because in that first moment where it's like, oh, are they going to start fighting over the jewels now? Is that going to like affect their relationship? And it's like, doesn't care. Here's the biggest one. That the point is, I don't even give a shit about what we just risked our lives for because I like you and I know you want this thing. So this is for you now. And she's like, oh, you actually care about me, and leans in to kiss him. It just feels very organic and real. And I love that about these characters.
And when we're introduced to the witch, or we assume is a witch.
Right, yeah. She's credited as witch.
Yeah. So we know magic is real.
Yes.
But
that was not Milius's focus when making the film, so he didn't really care a lot about that stuff.
But I think it helps to know that it exists and there is forms of it, and Mako as he says I'm a wizard, but he doesn't like shoot fireballs like Tim the Enchanter or anything like that. He's just like, I know some things. I do like temple-y kind of like he's basically guarding the graveyard because the spirits are like a mess there, so he just kind of he's like a groundskeeper. Yeah,
basically.
But he knows some things. He's like, oh, he's gonna die. I can try to do the ceremony that might save him.
But it's not like special effects intensive. It's literally like, I'm gonna paint shapes all over you.
Yeah.
And then someone else is gonna come in and do the effects heavy part, and it won't even look like that's my doing. But it's definitely a thumbs up for me.
I don't know that I'm gonna give this one a thumbs up. I feel bad. I know it's probably beloved and everyone's going to hate me for it, but I really was bored most of the time.
You got to be true to yourself, sweetie.
Well, a lot of these movies I have to sit through in a couple of sittings because I just don't have the energy at the end of the day to watch, like, especially a 2-hour movie like this.
Sure.
But I finished it and forgot I finished it. Like, that's how uneventful
it is. I was like, touch anticlimactic.
I was
the way
like,
the last fight
there's
goes.
like 30 minutes left. And I went back and I'm like, oh, wait, no. Oh, they set up some spikes and then okay. No, I watched all this.
Yeah, because Thulsa Doom is the big bad and he never fights in the whole film.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not that kind of big bad. He doesn't have any real strength.
Yeah. Or he's leaning too heavily on the hypnotizing eyes and he doesn't fully get the Ka effect.
So, sorry.
Maybe he's aging out of his powers even. And it's like, this is the first person to confront him since he's kind of lost that ability to control people.
Yeah. So, thumbs down.
I give it a thumbs up. I really I like this movie a lot.
And what are we thinking Letterboxd for this one, Jessica?
It's not great. I have this one at 58 out of 72.
Okay.
It's below Partners and above Movie Madness.
Is that what we're at, 72 now?
That's what I got.
Yeah.
I have it at number 7.
All right.
So it's in my top 10.
Oh my gosh.
For now. Everything's going to get shifted down.
Yeah.
So that puts it below Quest for Fire. I'm reading it right here. Why can't I just say it? I'm reading it. And above Death Watch.
All right. I have it in my top 10 also.
Oh my
but
God, you
it's
guys.
in 10th place, which puts it just under Diva and just above Porky's.
Well, to be fair, Porky's is right down there at the bottom of my list too.
Sure. There you go. Yeah, see?
Yeah, Porky's is not in my top 10.
Well, it's not in mine either now.
Oh, good.
Because it did well in the box office, it was required by the law of filmmaking to get a sequel. And that came in 1984 in the form of Conan the Destroyer, directed by Richard Fleischer, the son of animator Max Fleischer, and director so far on the show of Soylent Green. Of course, Arnold returns. This time, he is partnered with a comic relief rogue-type character named Malak, played by Tracy Walter. They're visited by Queen Taramis with a quest for Conan in exchange for literally anything he wishes. All he wants is Valeria back.
What I want, you cannot give me.
Yes, I can.
You can bring back the dead?
Do as I ask of you, and I will.
Marching into town the first time, Malak points out a camel and asks if Conan recognizes it.
I'm sorry about what happened the last time.
It spits on him, and he knocks the camel out again. Taramis asks Conan to escort her niece, Princess Jenna, to the castle of Thothanon, where only she can collect the bejeweled horn of Dagoth. Thothanon is actually the canon arch-enemy of Conan in the original series, like the stories. Queen Taramis also sends the captain of her guard, Bombata, played by Wilt Chamberlain, along for the journey, with orders to kill Conan once his objective is complete, because she can't bring people back from the dead. So she's like, all right, as soon as he deserves his prize, just murder him and then we're all good.
She should have said, I will reunite you with your...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you'll get her back because you'll be up there. Early in the quest, they happen upon a tribe attempting to cook Conan's wizard friend alive over a fire, and Mako reprises the role of the character, now named Akiro. Mere miles down the road, the party interrupt another public execution and rescue the captive Zula, played by Grace Jones, who joins their party. One night, the princess is stolen from their camp by an invisible bird and taken to an ice castle in the middle of a lake.
How do you know it's a bird?
Because it looks like the ghosts from the first film, but they can't see it.
Okay. It's like...
It's invisible to them, not to me. I have special powers, Richard, I haven't mentioned. She's held hostage in this castle by the evil wizard Thothamon, played by Pat Roach, who seems something akin to Adventure Time's Ice King, until Conan breaks into his icy palace and defeats the wizard to steal another important gemstone. Later, they're attacked by men on the road, and Conan grows suspicious of Bombata when he recognizes this latest wave of attackers as members of the Queen's Guard, who should be answering to Bombata directly. Eventually, they reach a temple, and the princess collects the sacred horn relic from its flaming stand without injury. The leader of this castle, credited as just the leader, nearly catches them here, ordering the princess to return the horn, which is prophesied to resurrect their god, but they fight him off, leaving behind the princess and the horn, because they get separated in their escape. So much of this film reminds me of Carpenter's Big Trouble in Little China. The set design, the costumes, dueling wizards. We have a moment with Mako and another wizard, doing invisible powers to each other. The horn is replaced in its stand, which brings to life an enormous horned monster, but Conan pries the horn loose again from its face, and the creature dies, saving the world from its reign. The film ends with the same King Conan shot as the first film, and despite being canon to Howard's original stories and many attempts to get one off the ground, the story of Conan's eventual rise to the throne has, to date, never been adapted to film. 1985, the very next year, Red Sonja. Directed again by Richard Fleischer, but this time centered on another of Howard's beloved Hyborian heroes, Red Sonja, portrayed in the film by Bridget Nielsen. It starts not unlike the first Conan, with Queen Gedren's conquerors attacking this woman's village and murdering her parents. When Sonja refuses her sexual advances, she is left for dead. She's granted the power to fight by a supernatural spirit, but her powers come with a price. She cannot have sex with any man until her suitor first defeats her in combat. Later, her sister Varna is mortally wounded by Gedren's soldiers, and the sisters are reunited by a returning Arnold, though referred to here as Lord Kalidor, never Conan. Sonja vows to take over her sister's mission and steal a talisman from the queen to prevent her from using it to destroy the world. Along the way, she reluctantly joins forces with both Kalidor and a young prince named Tarn, played by Ernie Reyes Jr., who performed as Donatello in the first Ninja Turtles movie, and then Kino, their human sidekick, in Secret of the Ooze. And the prince's adult handler, Falcon, played by Bluto actor Paul L. Smith.
No, nice.
Of course, once they've teamed up, they defeat Queen Gedren and her wizard, same as before. The villain's castle's destroyed by the appearance of a supernatural volcano this time. The original third Conan film was planned to be Conan the Conqueror, but Arnold's contract for a third title with De Laurentiis was fulfilled by his appearance in Red Sonja, and having moved on to headline the first Predator film, Arnold was not interested at the time in returning to Hyboria. The Conan the Conqueror film was recycled in the late 90s into Kevin Sorbo vehicle Kull the Conqueror, the canonical ancestor of Conan. And from those stories, the first film borrowed its central villain, Thulsa Doom. He's originally a Kull opponent, not a Conan opponent. In the Kull stories, Thulsa is described as a sort of prehistoric Baron Samedi, an Atlantean necromancer with flaming eyes and a bare white skull for a face. Kull the Conqueror, 1997, directed by John Nicolella and starring TV's Hercules Kevin Sorbo. Kull was actually the first of Howard's serial heroes, with only 12 short stories and a poem to his canon. Amusingly, Arnold's portrayal of Conan is described by some as a closer match to Kull, while Sorbo's Kull is actually a closer match, visually, to Conan and the stories. In the film, Kull wants to join the Dragon Legion, but was not born of noble blood. He's dragged into the Volusian throne room of the Mad King Borna, played by Thorgrim actor Sven-Ole Thorsen, and wins the entire kingdom via trial by combat. He tries to make sweeping changes to the kingdom, like freeing their slaves and providing for his people, but meets resistance from his handlers at every turn. He's hypnotized into marrying the sorceress Akivasha, played by Tia Carrera, and when she turns on him, he barely escapes the kingdom with his life. Now she's the queen. He returns to Volusia with another hastily assembled battle squad, and together they defeat Akivasha with a relic called the Breath of Valka, and Kull fights off all challengers to retake the throne of Volusia. It's actually super boring. Don't bother with it.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, because I was super into Hercules and Xena at the time.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh man, Kevin Sorbo was in a movie. Not so much into Kevin Sorbo these days.
Yeah,
but
I think it'd be cooler if Sam Raimi had something to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think it could have been something more interesting.
Yeah.
Also, it infuriates me to this day that whenever I try to talk about Krull,
people assume you're talking about Kull.
Yeah, people say it's like, oh, that terrible movie. It's like, no, it's not a terrible movie. It's great. It's like,
you're wrong. The next film is 2009's Solomon Kane, written and directed by M.J. Bassett and intended as the start of an aborted trilogy, based on another Howard character who's described in his stories as simply a destroyer of evil in general. He fights evil and he gets rid of it. The film introduces a lot of original lore for Kane, played by James Purefoy, who is Marcus Antonius from HBO's Rome. He's presented as a man with a dark past who led a ship full of men into a surprise demon raid that cost them all their lives. The demons claim Kane's soul for Satan, but he escapes with his life and swears never to fight again. Later, he finds a path to redemption, traveling with a religious family whose patriarch, played by Pete Postlethwaite, with his last dying breath, offers Kane salvation if he promises to protect his daughter Meredith. Kane breaks his vow of nonviolence to protect the girl and win his soul back from the devil. Kane's father in the film is played by a second Howard Universe king, played by Max von Sydow.
This is a Conan story?
This is a Solomon Kane story. It's a different hero from another Robert E. Howard book.
Okay. It's just from the Howard verse.
Yes. The next film was 2011's Conan the Barbarian. After many false starts to produce a canon sequel with Arnold returning to the Conan role, Schwarzenegger was elected governor of California in 2003, and the plans were officially scrapped. From there, the decision was made to reboot the franchise with Aquaman himself, Jason Momoa, in the lead. Film rights to the character bounced from Universal to Warner Brothers to Paradox to Millennium, who hired serial rebooter Marcus Nispel, director of the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the 2009 Friday the 13th, to helm the Conan reboot. It starts like Howard's stories, with Conan's 9 months pregnant mother fighting on a battlefield, and when she's mortally wounded, she instructs Conan's father, played by Ron Perlman, to cut the baby from her so that she might meet her son before she dies. Years later, as in the first film, their village is attacked and Conan's father is killed. He swears vengeance on the responsible warlord, played by Avatar's Stephen Lang as Kalar Zim, and his sorceress daughter Marique, played by Rose McGowan. As you may have guessed, Conan's lifelong quest ends with him claiming his vengeance and destroying the villain's stronghold again. For some reason, it's narrated by Morgan Freeman, who doesn't actually appear in the film. The following year, another direct Conan sequel was announced, entitled The Legend of Conan, intended to feature Schwarzenegger in the title role, but in 2017, producer Chris Morgan announced Universal had officially dropped the project. It's right when I started at Universal. Coincidence? No, I shut it down. In 2016, we get Red Sonja, Queen of Plagues. Dynamite Entertainment, at the time publisher of the official Red Sonja comic, released a slightly shorter than feature-length motion comic, written and directed by Gail Simone, a former writer for both the Simpsons and Deadpool comics, who rebooted the Red Sonja series in 2013. The script is based on her own run of the character. The most recent Robert E. Howard film is 2025's Red Sonja. Solomon Kane director M.J. Bassett returns to the Howardverse to helm the alleged 2025 Sword and Sorcery reboot. This is actually the culmination of decades of Red Sonja reboot rumors that first involved Robert Rodriguez directing his mistress Rose McGowan in the titular role. Next, Simon West of Con Air, The First Tomb Raider, and The Mechanic reboot was attached to direct Amber Heard in the role. This iteration was expected to film between a first and second Momoa Conan film and connected them canonically. But instead, Momoa moved on to portray DCU's Aquaman, and Amber Heard joined him there as his DCU love interest Mera. After West left the project, X-Men helmer Bryan Singer was attached and quickly removed in the wake of multiple credible sexual assault allegations. He was replaced by Joey Soloway, creator of the Jeffrey Tambor-led Amazon series Transparent, with Hannah John Kamen, MCU's Ghost, as its lead actress. When they stepped away when the project stalled in 2022, final director MJ Bassett was attached, with Matilda Lutz, star of The Ring 3, Rings, in the lead. It reportedly wrapped production in Greece in 2023 and has lingered in post ever since. There's production photos, there's a trailer for it. A distribution deal with Samuel Goldwyn Films was reached in March of this year, and it supposedly has an expected release sometime in 2025, according to Wikipedia and IMDb, but nothing more specific than that, just a year. That's the Conan / Red Sonja / Solomon Kane universe thus far. Our writer-director here was John Milius. Before this, he'd written the 71 Evel Knievel film starring George Hamilton, uncredited work on Dirty Harry and the screenplays of Jeremiah Johnson, and The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean and Dillinger. He returned to Dirty Harry for an actual screenplay credit on the second installment Magnum Force. He then wrote and directed The Wind and the Lion and Big Wednesday. He also wrote the screenplay for Coppola's Apocalypse Now and the story for Spielberg's 1941 On the Way to This. After this, he writes Red Dawn, Clear and Present Danger. He created the HBO series Rome and wrote 22 episodes.
I really liked Rome.
I never caught that one, but I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
The Solomon Kane actor is one of the leads of that show. Milius is also famously, and to look at the photo of the man quite obviously, the inspiration for John Goodman's Walter Sobchak character in the Coen brothers' Big Lebowski. Like, literally Google John Milius right now, and you'll think you're looking at a picture of Walter Sobchak from Big Lebowski. IMDb lists him uncredited as man selling lizards on sticks, but the scene, as I said, was cut before the theatrical release. The first writer here was Oliver Stone. We've seen his work previously directing The Hand. His work here was by all accounts completely scrapped, and he's back next year to write Scarface and later Year of the Dragon. He writes and directs Platoon, Wall Street, Born on the 4th of July, The Doors, JFK, Natural Born Killers, Nixon, Any Given Sunday, Alexander, Wall Street 2, and Savages, co-written and adapted from the novel of the same name by author and friend of the podcast, Don Winslow.
There's so many pictures of John Milius with guns and cigars.
Yeah. The story here came from Edward Summer. He was a marketing consultant uncredited on Phantom of the Paradise, Towering Inferno, and Star Wars, but no other writing credits to speak of. The novel here came from Robert E. Howard. This is the first IMDb credit for an adaptation of Howard's work, followed by a sequel, Conan the Destroyer, and the semi-spin-off Red Sonja. As I've already mentioned, his character Kull the Conqueror got the 90s film, Solomon Kane, etc. He also wrote a short story entitled The Curse of the Golden Skull, in which a dying magician curses humanity by invoking the Iron Books of Shuma-Gorath. And the name Shuma-Gorath was recycled by Marvel Comics as a popular antagonist of Doctor Strange. For this reason, Howard is awarded a character credit in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 for Shuma-Gorath's appearance, but no such credit is offered in Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which also features Shuma-Gorath prominently, but for legal reasons, renamed the creature Gargantos. That's the giant, eyeball character that comes out of the portal at the beginning of the movie. It's like the whole trailer for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. The music here came from Basil Polidaris. As inspiration, Milius pointed Polidaris to the works of Wagner, Stravinsky, and Prokofiev. He previously composed scores for Tinto Terra Killer Shark and John Milius' Big Wednesday. So far on the show, we've heard his work on the score for The Blue Lagoon. Very similar film. What? No, it's not. Later this season, he's back to score Summer Lovers and later Conan the Destroyer, Milius' Red Dawn, Iron Eagle, RoboCop, Hunt for Red October, Quigley Down Under, Hot Shots Part 2, Free Willy, Serial Mom, Starship Troopers, and Cecil B. Demented. His older daughter Zoe Polidaris actually played the recorder, which provides the melody of this film's orgy scene.
Nice.
So at 9 years old, he made her one of the youngest members of BMI, Broadcast Music Incorporated. She has since made a name for herself, composing with her father on Cecil B. Demented, and her last couple IMDb credits are for low-budget animated films The Hero of Color City and Bunyan and Babe, both of which I specifically remember writing coverage for and advising my employer against producing.
I remember that.
Yeah, they were terrible. The cinematographer here was Duke Callahan. He previously lit Jeremiah Johnson, but aside from that and this, his work is mostly on television shows like Heart to Heart and Miami Vice.
Well, after seeing a picture of John Milius, I can see him very enthusiastically hiring a man named Duke Callahan.
Yeah, especially since he wrote Dirty Harry. Editor Carol Timothy O'Meara previously cut Big Wednesday and the original Going in Style. After this, he cuts Last Starfighter, My Science Project, Hoosiers, The Dream Team, Cop and a Half, and Heavyweights. Arnold Schwarzenegger played Conan. We've seen him previously in Hercules in New York and The Long Goodbye. After this, he returns for Conan the Destroyer, James Cameron's Terminator films on the strength of this performance, Red Sonja, Commando, Predator, Running Man, Twins, Total Recall, Kindergarten Cop, Last Action Hero, True Lies, Junior, Eraser, Batman and Robin, End of Days, and a couple Expendable films. His most recent IMDb credit is for 14 episodes of Netflix series Fubar, which sounds from the description like a pseudo-sequel to True Lies, except with a father and daughter as dueling CIA agents instead of husband and wife.
Yeah, my dad and I tried to watch that show. The first episode didn't
great.
Reel us in, although I am excited about his Kung Fury 2
Oh my god,
appearance.
That's been in the can forever, too. Coming out soon, I hope. I think there was a trailer that came out like this week.
Yeah.
And he plays the president in Kung Fury 2, a long-awaited sequel. Much later, Arnold was famously elected governor of California, which is why Richard and I both have his autograph on our state college diplomas. During his time as governor, he had Conan's screen-used broadsword framed on the wall over his official desk. James Earl Jones plays Thulsa Doom. His first film credit was as Lieutenant Lothar Zog in Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, as a member of the same flight crew with Slim Pickens. Between that and this, he stars in The Great White Hope to a Best Actor Oscar nomination, Star Wars 4 and 5, voicing Darth Vader, and as a prisoner of war in The Bushido Blade. He's back later for Return of the Jedi, Soul Man, Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold, Coming to America, Field of Dreams, and he's Admiral Greer in Hunt for Red October, Patriot Games, and Clear and Present Danger. He's in The Sandlot, Meteor Man, Judge Dredd narrating, but most famously, after Darth, he provides the voice of Mufasa in Disney's The Lion King, and reprised the role in the alleged live-action remake. In 2011, Jones was awarded an honorary Oscar for Lifetime Achievement. Max von Sydow played King Osric. He appeared before this in Wild Strawberries and The Virgin Spring, which was remade as Last House on the Left. We've previously covered his work as Father Merrin in The Exorcist, Jobert in 3 Days of the Condor, Gerald Mortonhoe in Death Watch, Emperor Ming in Flash Gordon, and Major Steiner in Victory, or Escape to Victory. Next season, he shows up in Strange Brew and Never Say Never Again, and later, Dune. He's the voice of Vigo the Carpathian in Ghostbusters 2. He's Judge Fargo in Judge Dredd. He appears in What Dreams May Come, Minority Report, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, Rush Hour 3, and he's Josiah Kane in the 2009 Robert E. Howard adaptation, Solomon Kane. His last few major credits were as Lor San Tekka in Star Wars Episode 7 and the Three-Eyed Raven on Game of Thrones. He also received Oscar nominations for Best Actor in Pell the Conqueror and Supporting in Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close. In a deleted scene, Thulsa Doom's henchmen Rexor and Thorgrim kill King Osric on his throne, which is why we never see the princess return to him in the film. But I think it was good to take that part out.
Yeah.
Sandahl Bergman played Valeria. The only scene in the film to introduce her character by name was actually cut from the final film, so she's never technically named in the film. She was cast at the recommendation of Bob Fosse, with whom she'd worked on All That Jazz. We've seen her previously as one of the muses in Xanadu. She's back this season in Airplane 2, the sequel. She plays the titular lead character of She in the 1984 film, which is sort of a gender-swapped Conan story. And she returns to the Robert E. Howard cinematic universe as the villain Queen Gedron in 1985's Red Sonja. And later, she's in Hell Comes to Frogtown and the Clint Howard horror film The Ice Cream Man. Ben Davidson played Rexor. We saw him last as one of the Ringer football players in MASH. He was a professional player with turns for the Green Bay Packers, the Washington Redskins, and the Oakland Raiders. He also has a credit as doorman in Behind the Green Door, and later as another football player in the 1991 film Necessary Roughness. Cassandra Gava played the Witch. She's one of the film's 6 unnamed characters: Conan's parents, Conan's first owner, the Witch, the Wizard, and the Princess. She's back this season as JJ in Night Shift, and next season in High Road to China. Later, she's in Last Man Standing, and more recently she's credited as Maud Kemper, wife of serial killer Ed Kemper, in the 2025 Ed Kemper biopic. Gerry Lopez played Subotai. The character doesn't come from Howard's stories. Subotai was a historical general and a military strategist for Genghis Khan. His lines in the film are dubbed by Sab Shimono. He previously appeared as himself in Milius' Big Wednesday on account of his world-class skills as a professional surfer. He shows up again later in Milius' 1989 film Farewell to the King. Mako played the wizard/narrator. He was Oscar nominated for his supporting role in 1966's The Sand Pebbles. He's a prolific actor and voice actor with prior credits in the original Kung Fu series and so far on the show in Battle Creek Brawl, The Bushido Blade, Under the Rainbow, and An Eye for an Eye. After that, he's in Tucker, The Man in His Dream, Sidekicks, RoboCop 3, and Highlander, The Final Dimension. His later work is marked by a transition to mostly voice acting for beloved characters like Aku, the main villain of the Samurai Jack series, and perhaps most famously as Uncle Iroh in the animated Avatar The Last Airbender series. He also got the chance to voice Splinter in the 2007 TMNT animated feature, but he passed away before the film hit theaters. He reprises this role in Conan the Destroyer, where he is specifically named Akiro, which is nearly a combination of his two best voice acting roles, Aku and Uncle Iroh.
Mm-hmm.
Valerie Quennessen played the princess. She's back for Summer Lovers this season, but sadly she passed away in a car accident in 1989 at just 31 years of age. William Smith played Conan's father. He has child acting credits back to the early 40s, including The Ghost of Frankenstein, Meet Me in St. Louis, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, Gilda, and The Boy with Green Hair. So far on the show, we've seen him as a competitive boxer in Any Which Way You Can, fighting Eastwood. It's the same guy that Eastwood fights for the entire second half of the movie. Later, he's in The Outsiders, Rumblefish, Red Dawn, Hell Comes to Frogtown, alongside Valeria actress Sandahl Bergman, and Maniac Cop. Luis Barboo played Red Hair. He has earlier credits in The Light at the Edge of the World, and so far on the show as a henchman in Comin' At Ya. Franco Columbu played Pictish Scout. As a thank you for working as Arnold's strength trainer for the film, he was given a part in the film and cast as the red-haired man who collects Conan from the Wheel of Pain and forces him to fight other warrior slaves. Franco Columbu is also the man who dethroned him at the annual Mr. Olympia competition. Right. After this, he appears alongside Arnold in The Terminator, Predator, and Running Man. He's also Otto, the strongman, in Big Top Pee-wee. Eric Holme played Turanian War Officer. He's back in Conan the Destroyer as a henchman of the Queen, and then as a warrior in Red Sonja. Akio Mitamura played Mongol General. He's previously in Milius Project's The Wind and the Lion in 1941. He's also the pilot of the Lao She air freight plane at the start of Temple of Doom.
Okay.
Nadiuska played Conan's mother. Didn't recognize many other credits. She has a handful of Spanish credits and a few Italian softcore titles. The only one we've covered on the show was a minisode review of Guyana Cult of the Damned. Jorge Sanz played young Conan. Apparently he's a prolific Spanish child actor who worked in film through adulthood, but I didn't recognize the titles. He's a great match for young Arnold, though. I felt like this kid looks like he could have grown up to be Arnold. Jack Taylor played a priest. Before this, he's credited as Mabuse in The Vengeance of Dr. Mabuse in 1972. We'll see him next season as Professor Arthur Brown in Pieces. Much later, he's Victor Fargus in The Ninth Gate.
Dr. Mabuse?
Yeah.
As in like Fritz Lang's Mabuse?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It has lots of sequels, actually.
Oh, right. I didn't know that.
Sven Ole Thorsen played Thorgrim. This is his first feature film credit, and he returns as a similarly named character, Togra, in Conan the Destroyer, and a third character in Red Sonja, and even a fourth character in Kull the Conqueror, which would mark his last foray into the Robert E. Howard cinematic universe. Outside of Hyboria, he collaborates with Arnold in Raw Deal, Predator, Running Man, Red Heat, Twins, Terminator 2, Last Action Hero, Eraser, End of Days, and Collateral Damage. He also makes appearances in Lethal Weapon, Overboard, the Captain Power videos, Pink Cadillac, Hunt for Red October, Lethal Weapon 3, Hard Target, The Quick and the Dead, Ah Real Monsters, Mallrats, Bulletproof, Baywatch Nights, 13th Warrior, Gladiator, The Sum of All Fears, and Charlie's Angels Full Throttle. Kiyoshi Yamazaki played the Swordmaster. He was also the actual Swordmaster on the set, and he returns to the franchise to play Kyobu in Red Sonja. Other than Conan films, his only sword trainer credit is in 1996's Dragonheart. Pilar Alcón played Orgy Slave Girl. She's also the girl in the puzzle in Juan P. Carcimon's Pieces next season. She's the girl in the puzzle, the printed photo. Florencio Amarilla played Man. He appeared previously in Patton, Doc, Red Sun, Duck Usaka, and Chato's Land. His only credit after this is in Yellow Hair and The Fortress of Gold. Ron Cobb was the Black Lotus street peddler. This is the only acting credit for the special effects wizard whose work we most recently discussed in John Carpenter's Dark Star, which led directly to art department credits in Star Wars, Alien, Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Abyss, Total Recall, and District 9. As I mentioned, he also designed all the swords for the film, which were then brought to life by bladesmith Jody Sampson. Dragon Dronette, or Drone, played Pit Fighter. He has mostly prop credits after this, including in the MacGyver Pilot, Total Recall, RoboCop 2, Star Trek 6, Lawnmower Man, Batman Returns, The Net, and Theodore Rex, among many others. Donald Gibb played one of Osric's guards. We've seen him so far in Any Which Way You Can and Stripes, but he's definitely best known as Ogre in Revenge of the Nerds 1, 2, and 4, as well as Herman the German in MacGyver episode Split Decision, which we just mentioned in our Death Race 2000 review because it had a different Herman the German. He's also in Blood Sports 1 and 2. Corey Jansen played the beautiful woman jumping to her death. She's also a stunt double previously on the show for The Unseen, but those are her only 2 credits on IMDb, so I'm not convinced she survived this jump. But it was a record. So that's cool. Celia Kay played High Priestess. She had previously played Karana, the central character of the 1962 adaptation of Island of the Blue Dolphins. She also shows up in Milius' Big Wednesday. Isabel Lucky, or Luque, played Woman. She also shows up in Pieces as Sylvia Costa. And Sab Shimono, who dubs Subotai's voice in the film, shows up previously in Midway, Rabbit Test, and so far on the show as the busboy at the Hong Kong restaurant in Cheech and Chong's Nice Dreams. He shows up later this season in John Frankenheimer's The Challenge, and in Ninja Turtles 3 he plays Lord Norinaga. He's Koga in Three Ninjas Kick Back, and later he shows up in The Shadow, Waterworld, and he follows Mako to both the Avatar universe voicing Monk Gyatso and Master Yu, and the Samurai Jack universe as the voice of the Emperor. Oh. I think that's everything for Conan the Barbarian. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share, you can find all our socials at linktree/vintagevideopod. If you really like the show, maybe you should join our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/vintagevideopodcast. What's that sound?
We got one!
That's right, it's a new patron, Rich Turek. As a $5 patron of the show, Rich now has access to 63 full-size 70s reviews and a hand in choosing next month's film. Patrons are currently choosing between Cooley High, Doc Savage, The Man of Bronze, Jaws, Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, Love and Death, Nashville, Race with the Devil, Rollerball, and The Will Be Conspiracy for a 50th anniversary review next month. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join us next time when we'll be discussing Death Screams, which IMDb describes like so. In a small town in North Carolina, a group of friends are stalked by a mysterious machete-wielding maniac. We leave you now with the trailer for Death Screams.
Lily, Ramona, Kathy. Live for kicks.
Have we got plans tonight? What? Yeah, we're having a party.
Yeah, we're all going down to the river after dark.
Come on, you guys. It'll be a night that'll go down in history.
But someone's killing for kicks. You'll feel their terror. You'll see their horror. Death Screams.